Hey guys, this is Eric Weingartner with Weingartner Racing. It's Saturday, so it's an update video day. But before you turn off on that, this one probably has more tech in it than several of the other videos that I do. This one just will have a whole bunch of different tech things in it that wouldn't make a whole video. But it's a lot that's happened this week, and it's kind of related to tech. So what will be covered, just to give you an idea, I flowed that AFR 300 that you just saw on Thursday. I flowed it on the larger board so you can see that. I actually flowed the ProMax 317 heads I used for the 540 Dyna Mule. I actually flowed those on the bigger board too because, well, I kind of forgot to do that when I tested on the 540 and it didn't make sense for the amount of power it was making for the flow. But yeah, so that's going to be in this video as well. I also get to share my new CNC Dragon Slayers. So obviously I've got my standard one. This is a brand new one. It just got finished getting digitized and stuff. So this is a really cool one. And then I've got stuff about my new SR20 CNC head as well. I'll show you that. And spacer stuff. I'll just kind of give you spacer stuff. Really neat that came in that I get to show you about testing. And also some other stuff with the LS testing, because I did a little bit of work on the AFR LS3 heads, the Enforcer ones. And I'm going to show you the results on that as well. So there's really a lot going on in this video. But anyway, let's start off with the flow numbers. So let me grab my camera and I'll show you the flow numbers from this AFR head with the bigger bore. Because one of the questions people ask is, well, does it flow more on a bigger bore? Well, I've got an answer for you. Okay guys, just to kind of recap you, this is the AFR. It's their 300cc full CNC ported Magnum head. As you can tell, it says 300 right there. This is now flowed on a 4625 bore. If you watch a video on Thursday, I flowed on a 4310 bore. I imagine really though, if you're buying this head, you're probably putting it on something smaller. I just don't see you guys putting it on a bigger bore. You might say, I wish you would do it on a 4.5 bore. I don't have that bore sleeve or deal to do. I have a 4310 and a 4625. This would be a huge difference. So let's see how much actually flow difference changed. So here's your 4310 and this is the 4625. And I only did the long runner, I just for the sake of time. If we look, so very little change at 100. 200, it's about 6 CFM better. 300, it gains quite a bit, almost 10. And almost 10 at 4 as well. It goes from 283 to 294. That's a huge jump. And at 5, it goes from 321 to 338. And it's actually peaking at 376 at 700 lift. And then it drops off like a stone, which if you notice, it doesn't do that on the smaller bore. Now this part's interesting. Really, really interesting, because if you look at this is with the 4310, it just keeps climbing until about 900, then it backs up. That does not happen with the bigger bore. If you look at 700, it does its best and then it drops. So I think they claim it goes 400. It didn't come close to that. It drops off right after, and it keeps dropping. If the valve could open more, it would have dropped off more. This is an airspeed issue. Their short side on that 300 is very, very steep. It's not the way I had designed it, I'll say. But very, very steep, has a lot of airspeed. So you're like, great torque, but that's what's going to happen. So getting your power to continue on after a certain RPM is going to be pretty tough with these. Even though they're 300 cc's, you put them on a big engine, you're limiting. So there's probably things you could change in the port, or at least I would, to keep it to continue gaining. Even if you don't run a 1-inch lift cam. I know that people keep saying that. I don't care, I don't run a 1-inch cam, it's no big deal. That tells you how stable the airspeed is, because the airspeed's causing it to drop flow. And this, remember, the flow bench is only pulling 28 inches of vacuum, and in a live engine, you pull way more than that. So what ends up happening is this backup and flow is gonna happen when you're in a live engine. And that's why it'll hit like an RPM peak, and that's it. It just won't gain anymore. But just because of curiosity, does that happen all the time on every head? No. So let me show you this. This is that ProMax one that I use on my 540. So if you, just to go back, this is what the stock numbers did on a 4310. I put a 50-degree valve job on it. If you look, it did 386. We're just gonna do the long runner. It went 386. That's a 4310 bore. Let me just scoot them right over here. This right here is 386 on the 4310. This is the 4625. It goes all the way up to 405 now. Jumped up big. Look at the 400 number. This was it on the 4310 bore, 260. It jumped all the way to 284. This may explain why this head right here, this is the flow numbers from the head that was used on the 540 Dyna Mule. This made 933. If you looked at this flow, you wouldn't have thought it'd even come close. This makes a little bit more sense. So there's no extra port work done. It's just a bigger bore. The short rotor also gained, because if you look at it, it went from flowing 262 at 4 to 291. That's big, big. And then also even the peak, 364 to 364 was the same. Now look at this, 379 to 367. This one did not drop as bad. Matter of fact, if you just look at the AFR one, it actually flowed worse at the peak with the 4625 bore. This one actually still flows better with the smaller bore, even though it drops in flow. It still flows more on the larger bore, sorry. So that's interesting. Anyway, let's get to the next thing. Now to these. These are my Dragon Slayers. These are my bread and butter. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you before you're like, oh, they look horrible. These aren't finished. They just came out of the CNC machine. They still have a lot of process still yet to do. So I have to do a valve job still on them, blend the guides, blend the valve job. There's quite a bit of work still left to do, and final surfacing. These, I wouldn't send them out like this at all. Also, as you can tell, there's some shadows there. That's where the casting does not hit, and there's a reason why I do this. I told you there's core shift on the Dragon Slayers. It's on these outside ones. If I got it to where it cleans up perfectly and you see full CNC lines, it's too thin, from my opinion, to be in between here. So it's not so much a problem on these ones, well, kind of. But anyway, this is the standard valve spacing one. This one's available, and I'm trying to keep this one in stock. And matter of fact, I've got probably 3 sets coming right now. So these are for sale, and there are a couple of options. The standard one doesn't require a shaft rocker. You can just bolt it on, flows 330, 253 cc's. Intake runners are like, oh my gosh, it's too big. They make some power. And they have a 70 cc combustion chamber. It can be milled down a little bit. I think I've gotten down to 67. 2125 intake valve, 1575 exhaust valve, standard valve spacing. Doesn't require anything special as long as your piston will clear a 2125 intake valve, which most will. Great head. But I wanted to do something different, and that's where this one came in. This one's a 40-60 spacing. So it's a Dragon Slayer, but I've moved the valve spacing, so it's 40-60. In other words, the intake valve's moved over 40 thousandths away from the bore. The exhaust valve's moved 60 thousandths towards the bore. This allows you to run a 2125 1600 valve, but I can put a 215 in. I just haven't experimented to try that. It's full CNC ported too. Of all the heads I've ever done, this is the most expensive one I've ever had in development. I'm losing my rear end right now on this head, but it's fantastic. So 2125 1600 can be a 215. This one, fantastic. The chamber, because I did it totally different from the standard one. It is a smaller one anyway. It comes in at 67 cc's. It can be milled down a little bit further. This one, compared to the two, and I'm looking to try these on the dyno mule at some point. This one flows more, obviously, the 4060, even though they have the same size intake valve. This one is probably the best flowing head I've seen at 500 and even, yeah, 5 and 400. It's really, really good. It's much better than this one. This one's really good though too. But just to give you an idea, this one's over 300 at 5. And that's on my bench guaranteed flow numbers, not some jacked up numbers. Although I do give you flow numbers from the Superflow if you want to feel good about yourself, because then it's way over 300 on the Superflow. But I don't do that because that's cheating. But anyway, this one is really good. So this one flows in the 330s. I mean, very slightly. This one will almost hit 340 on the signs, which is almost 350 on that. This one, this particular one, also does not require a shaft rocker. So I had them where they could machine the push rod slot so I'd have more room. So you don't even have to run a shaft rocker if you want. I do have both of these available in a shaft rocker option that flows slightly more air, but they give you more cross section. This one, because of the spacing being moved over, actually has a bigger cross section. So it's like 2.8, and this one's 2.769. And the weird thing about it though is the exhaust ports. Remember, the standard one has a 1.575 exhaust valve. This one's 1.6. The standard one actually flows more because it's further away from the bore. Even though the port shape's the same or close to it, it's a little bit more. But anyway, both of these are available. This one, I'm probably gonna, either two things are gonna happen with this. And yes, that's where that head bolt hole goes. On the standard one, I actually had to machine it so that I don't have to put a sleeve in. On this 4060, I didn't. Both of these, I'm trying to keep the standard one in stock at all time. Probably won't I probably will keep one set maybe in stock, but this particular one, this is the first one ever. It's either gonna go on the dyno mule or I'm gonna sell it. And I'll probably sell it at a reasonable cost. This does cost more than the standard one just because it's got more special parts. But anyway, really cool head. Eventually I'll put the whole flow numbers on the website at some point, but I've sold quite a few of these, and I have dyno with the standard one. So I know it's 700 plus. I'm going to tell you, 700 plus. I don't know of any of them that's made less than that yet. Depending on your combination, obviously, it probably could, but really good. This one should be better. But anyway, that's that. Let me show you the next thing that's also getting the CNC development. This one's cool. This is the next head that's getting sent off. So I'm probably gonna send this off on Monday to be digitized and ported. This is actually a BRX head from Brodix, which is essentially an SR20. This is actually how the SR20 head looks when it's not CNC cut. So this design goes into this one. But I am super proud of this one. I spent a lot of time in development, like trying. The short runner really was the biggest pain in the rear. I'm really good with the long runner. You wanna know why? Because it's essentially the same as a small block Chevy. And I'm so much experience with that, but it turned out amazing. I'm not gonna show you because I did a lot of work on that deal. But anyway, very proud of that. But great, the short runner, I'm happy with it, but man, that's a tough one. Anyway, these are getting sent off and these will be available anyway. I probably will never keep these in stock because they're so expensive. I was really hoping that maybe if I did this, I could actually sell like a full CNC SR20 head for the price of a full CNC, you know, traditional big block Chevy head. That's impossible. And let me tell you why. This is a BRX casting, and this is the CNC SR20 casting. And you can tell how small it is, and you can see the small chamber. This head, unported, exactly like you see here, has no work done to it. This actually cost me more than the cost from this head, the BRX one, which if you were to get it, would already have a CNC chamber and bulb and all that. So it's weird that the head that has no work done on it costs more than the head that does have work done on it. And you might go, no, it's not. You have to have these upgraded seats. Yeah, I have to have this one because I run a 55-degree valve job on the intake. Got to have that seat, and it doesn't come that way standard. Now, something I did want to bring up with you guys is this. You probably see it. I'm going to have this chamber modeled. So this is one of these other chambers. I'm not going to sell which one. Is the one that's getting digitized as well, and will be run with the program that will go on there. But I wanted to make a real small chamber version, which turns out it's pretty hard. So that's what you see here. This is, by the way, it's just JB Weld quick stick. It's 2-part epoxy. It works. Would I run this in the engine? Absolutely not. This is just for modeling. I love using it for modeling. I could form it much easier. But I was trying to make a chamber smaller, and all of this added, which is a lot, it only gets it down to 90. So what I am going to do is I'm going to have him digitize this. I will not run it with this program. I won't. But I want him to have that there because I would like for one of you guys, if you want to experiment with this, I'll sell you a BRX head, but I'm going to have them not do the chambers from the factory. And I'm going to try to put this chamber in it because the chambers would look like this, and then put this chamber in it. And then maybe you guys could run a flat top piston and you'd have something pump gas kind of friendly with a little bit bigger engine. And with this chamber, I really would like to try it. So if you're interested in that, hit me up. I'll sell you the BRXs for whatever my cost will be, plus 500 bucks. So I'm gonna make 500 on the deal, which still not cheap, gonna tell you, because there's no cheap. So it'd be an as-cast port with just this chamber instead of the chamber that you get from Brodix. And we'll see what kind of power it would make. And if no one does that eventually, I'm sure at some point I'm gonna try it. But anyway, that's one of the cool things that's going on the next thing. One more note, this dude flows a ton of air. Just to give you an idea, on the Signs bench, it's over 522 CFM. That means on the Superflow, that's 530 plus. It's insane, really good. But anyway, now let me go to the next thing. Polymer Racing Products sent me some more spacers to try. And let me show you these. These are a little weird, and I don't mind testing them. These are made to test them with dual plane, which, check this out. A viewer is sending in this intake manifold. It hasn't got here yet, but this is a dual plane for an LS3, so I could use it on the dyno mule. Now, it's a very large dual plane, and it, as you notice, it doesn't have a cutout divider, which will really work great for these spacers that I'm getting ready to show you. But yeah, something else cool, so thanks to the viewer for that. These spacers are designed to go on a dual plane intake manifold like that, where it doesn't have the cutout. Now, they did two different things. You're like, I don't see really a difference. Look, this is the big divider that goes for the center. But if you notice, they did a 4-hole, and they kind of have this here. So it's a 4-hole with a thicker one in the center for a tapered, or for the dual plane. This is a little bit different. than this. If you notice, they've removed that. So it's a little bit different design. I said, give it a shot, see what it works. So what I think what's gonna happen is the next time the 408 LS gets on the dyno, which is gonna be a little bit, because the next time it does it, I'm gonna be testing different heads and camshafts and manifolds. But when that goes on there, I'm gonna try these and see what happens. This will be kind of interesting because I've never really tried this. So, and I think I've got one other spacer that a viewer is actually sending in to see what happens. So thanks for all the people that keep sending stuff in to test. If it's something easy, I don't mind testing them because I want to know information more than I want to know have fame. So getting these to work and be kind of interesting. I really don't know what to think about it. I think maybe this will be good, but we'll see. And then also, this came in. Urson reground a cam for me to use for the LS Dyno Mule, and I'm gonna share the specs with you. So thank you for Urson for that. They do a fantastic job. If you ever need a cam, contact Russ Yoder. He's the one of the guys there at Urson. He's great to deal with. Super nice, and he did this. So let me show you the specs. And speaking of which, the tech video on Monday is the one you've been waiting for. It's the camshaft one on the LS Dyno Mule. So I put in the bigger camshaft and share the specs and get to see results. So let me show you these specs. Now, this isn't ideally what I wanted, but it couldn't happen because it was a regrind. So what this is, it's a, looking here real quick, 234 intake duration, 246 on exhaust. That's a 12-degree split between intake and exhaust. It's got a 1:7 rocker ratio. We'll have a 621 lift on both intake and exhaust. The lobe center, or lobe separation, just gotta find it again, it's 108. There it is. So it's a 108 lobe separation angle. And you might say, why didn't you do something wider? And I actually wanted like a 111 or a 110. It couldn't get in there because of the way it was ground. It was already on a 108, so it couldn't happen. So because of a regrind. If you did a brand new core, you could do whatever you want, but using what you have to kind of, you're within those parameters or whatever. So it's a 108. So yeah, this one will be interesting. This will be next time we go to dyno test, it'll be on this. And I actually kind of think this may be better for the heads that it's intended to go for, because this is for a customer. This one's going to go on the Brodix BR3 heads when it goes on there. I mean, I'll test it with other ones as well, but, well, at least one other one. Yeah, that's what it's going to go for. And the BR3 heads, I love those heads, but I feel bad because I think those are going to do the worst. Even though I've done port work to them, they're actually the largest head that's there, but it's a stock valve angle at 15 degree. They use a lot of stock stuff, and it has the least compression ratio. So that 108 may actually help it. But anyway, I do want to show you this, though, because I think it's interesting. So when you order a camshaft, I've said this from Urson before, they give you an actual cam doctor sheet. So this is what they want it to be. This is what it actually is. So if you look, this is the exhaust side, and this is the intake side. You can look at all the specs of duration throughout the lift curve, and you can see. So for instance, if you look at 50 thousandths, it's actually 232.78. Now, I've told you before, and people get upset with this because, you know, facts. But this is the small block Chevy one right here. So if we look at just the intake, because it's a solid roller, we do it 20 thou. If you look, it's got 36.38 degrees area. That's where its area is. Let's compare that to the intake on this side. So this would be 6,000 because it's a hydraulic roller, and it's 29.08. So at this point now, that's only 6 degrees separation, about. Now, granted, you're like, oh, blah, 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 your deflection, whatever, same. Anyway, the point being is you could compare these. You could even look at the acceleration curves if you really wanted to plot this out and see which one is actually accelerating faster, this one versus this one, if you get it. So this is the intake side right here. This is the intake side on the solid roller on a small block, but at least it has that. Really cool, look forward to that. There's also supposed to be other cams that are supposed to come for me to test that are much larger, like some are in the 250s, and we'll get to test those as well. But this is for sure here. Speaking of other LS stuff, check this out. Here are the AFR LS3 Enforcer heads. I'm gonna port these and go back on the dyno with them. Also gonna mill them down to get the compression ratio up. I did redo the valve job. Oh my God. Ugh. For the record, I was really hoping, because these were the Enforcer heads, that what the seat material that they would have would be the same ones in the small block Chevy Enforcer head, which is a ductile iron that's easy to machine. Hell no. They had to put these copper crap in it. the Chinesium copper crap that I hate cutting. I despise them because you're going to end up cut and then you have to use a stone. They're too hard. I don't know why they do that. But anyway, because if you were watching last week and you saw me look over the head, it's because I saw a spot where they weren't sealing, which is weird because, I vacuum tested them, but I was like, oh, there's a little spot. Now I understood. They're too hard, they skip, and that's what happened. So you have to use a stone. Now, so I got the valve job done, and I know David Visor had done a little porting on one just for fun or whatever. I actually did some because I got to port these. I did one, so I'm gonna show you, whatever. Not doing much, but here's what I did. Just kind of whipped out one real quick, and you're like, it doesn't look beautiful. That doesn't look great at all. I don't care what it looks like. This is going back on the dyno. It's going to look like carbon in a minute. But redid the chamber, as you could tell, and did some work on the exhaust, or on the intake port. Haven't touched the exhaust port yet. You can tell that vein. That's a really weird one. I made it look something like this. Here's the thing. I didn't try to make it that much larger at all because this head's 238 cc's before porting. I'm trying to keep it small because I already have big heads to test. So these were already good. Just need a little bit of, just a little kick in the pants. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, this is what it looks like. It doesn't look beautiful. I'm not trying to make it look beautiful. Just trying to get the job done, but this is a better view. You can see on the short side, and you can't see because it's dark, but there you go. But what does it really do, right? Because I was really just curious to see how much extra flow, or if it picked up any flow, or what it did. So I'm trying to set this down gentle. There we go. This was the stock flow. And it only went, this on the super flow, by the way. It went 326 on the super flow at 600. This is a stock. This is a swirl. The reason why I have it on this sheet is because I wanted to see it swirl. This is after. Remember, this is 208 intake valve. This is insane. Look at it now, 281. I just spent an entire week working on this LS3 project. Entire week. And I couldn't get to do that on at least that particular head, with a 2165 intake valve. This one does it with a 208. That's a phenomenal flow there. And then if you look at 600 now, it's 345. So again, like 20 CFM. Now peak, it only does 355. But look at this. Yes, it drops. It goes from 345 to 335, but it only loses 10. It lost more than that. Well, about 10, the same thing before. But on all the other LSs, they dropped like 20. But look at this too. The swirl numbers changed. I actually increased swirl. I hope this works. Anyway, just something to play with. Got that out of the way. And yeah, so there we go. Not at all close to done. I've been so busy trying to actually make money because this thing making money. This is fun to learn, not making money. And the shop has to make money because I got to pay bills. And yeah, pay for the development on that CNC head. But anyway, there's one more thing because you stuck around this long. Let me show you this. These are those ProMax 317 heads that came off the 540 dyno. I've cut them out to a larger intake valve now, 2350, and redid the valve job on the exhaust to make it 50 degree on both of these. I'm going to fully port this head and we'll see how well it does. But because you watched to the end of this video, the 540 dyno mule is going on the dyno, and it will be on the dyno on Thursday. What has changed? I have the AFR 385 heads on it. When we find out how much power that does make over these. The other thing is I'm going to test, probably there are only two other things I'm going to test in this dyno session. Switching out the intake rockers to 1:8 ratio, which gives me more lift. We'll see what that does. And then also putting on a 1250 carburetor to see what that does on this engine. Hopefully it makes at least the same power that these made at 933, which you're like, well, it flows more. These had 110 cc combustion chambers. The AFRs are 119. We lost 1 point of compression ratio. And you can kind of see, look, beautiful. See how that mark? Beautiful, small chamber. Yeah, small chamber, big block heads definitely need to be made. And I'm trying to work with a company to get them made. I said, I'll do all the development work if you just make the thing. And you don't even have to pay me royalties. I just want it made. But yeah, we'll see if that ever happens. Probably not. But anyway, I don't know if the AFRs, because remember, with the larger bore, these flowed 405. On the larger bore, the 385s, the AFRs, they only went 430. So it flows 30 CFM more, lost 1 point of compression. But I am going to try the different rocker ratio on the intake and then also the bigger carburetor. So if you're a channel member, look for videos and get stuff text to you. Like, wait a minute, what's a channel member? These guys paid $150 and their membership lasts for a year. So speaking of which, a lot of you channel members, in about a month or so, your channel membership is going to run out. So you'll have to renew and pay the other $150, which you're like, oh man,
if you think about it, it's only like 10 or 15 bucks a month. And that really helps the cause, as you know, because memberships go from year to year. So if you're wanting to get one, I highly recommend you buy it. It's 150 bucks. You'll get texted the dyno numbers. Also, there's plenty of other benefits too, besides getting the instant information right away. If you have a tech question, you get to call and I'll answer it right off because your name's actually saved to my phone number and you get answered right away. The other thing that happens is if you want a flow sheet for a different head, just say, man, you don't have any information about these heads? Yep, sure do. And if I do, I'll send it to you and you get all that information. And obviously, it's a big help to the channel for this further dyno testing, because last week I mentioned I'd really like to test a 408 Windsor, and a viewer actually hit me up and said, I've got a short block 408 Windsor and it's all Ford stuff if you want to use it for testing. And I was like, you know, why not? Sorry, I had to stop the video. Someone was at the door. Anyway, the guy offered a 408 to use for dyno testing for small block Ford stuff, and it's got most of the stuff there. Fantastic, because I actually really did want to do a small block Ford dyno mule. And so, yeah, if you're not a channel member, you probably should, because next year is going to be a banger, I think. Because if you think, oh, shoot, I didn't even tell you about that one. Another guy sent in the 383, which I think it's actually at Dunsworth or not. And that one will be just for stock heads. So I'll have 2, maybe 3, which I'll bring up in a second, small block Chevys to be testing. Hopefully this 408 Windsor. The LS, obviously, the 540 dyno mule as well, the big block that I'm testing. So a lot of stuff from different makes. It's really, really neat. And thank God for crowdsourcing. You guys really made it happen. But anyway, I'm hoping to go up to Ohio to pick up that engine. And I was thinking, this is just me thinking out loud, I haven't asked anybody, but I was thinking, oh man, maybe I'll stop by the old man's garage and say hello, but I haven't even talked to him or nothing like that. But I think it'd be cool. It'd be really cool if I take the 540 with me and then we could put on Bob's dyno and just play with it for a little bit more there too. Or, I don't know, one of the small blocks or whatever. But anyway, speaking of which, the small block, let's get back to that one. The 406, as you might remember, that's been the golden standard. I used it for the very first one. That one, I've still got to port just the exhaust ports on the AFR Enforcers. Once those are done, let me just pull it out because it makes the video. Here are the Enforcer heads. All I'm going to do, I've already done the valve job on the exhaust. I'm just going to port the exhaust and put them on that 406, and then that'll be the last set of heads that ever goes on it. But then we can actually see what the ported exhaust port does. But then I think what's going to happen is, I think I'm just going to sell that 406 and use that money to build a new dyno mule, 434 with some high compression, because none of the stuff that I have for dyno testing is high compression. I really would like to have a higher compression 434. Then I could really test my Dragon Slayer, my CNC designs, and see what kind of superpower we could make with it, just to kind of get on with it. But I don't know, maybe not even happen, because I'm thinking just ballpark idea on the price that I'd even sell it for after it was running. You're taking it as is, as you know, you watch all the channel stuff on it, it's probably at least $6 grand for that. But anyway, I want to test this to see what it does. Still have to port that, but again, this doesn't make money, so I've got to get jobs done to pay bills, to pay for dyno testing. So this isn't making money, so I got to find time to even do that. Last thing, I forgot about, this is me losing track of time. I still have not sent those books to David Visor to have him sign. I totally had slipped my mind until someone commented, and I forgot. For the winners, you've gotten your books, but you haven't got the one signed from David Visor, and that's because I haven't sent it to him. That's not his fault, that was mine. Because he said he'd be more than happy to do it. I just have to tell him who he wants them dressed to, and I just haven't, I forgot. Life is busy, so I would like to have hired someone else in the shop, but I actually tried and that didn't work. So anyway, a lot going on. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Lots happening, and maybe next week probably won't be this long of a video because it probably won't have as much interesting stuff. So look for the video to get people really riled up on Monday about your wrong thinking on cams. And I'm No Superman. Thanks for everything that these viewers keep doing for me. I'm glad that this works out. I'm so excited for all this. So thanks for that, and good to see what happens. But guys, I'm No Superman. I do not port cast iron heads. I really wish you'd buy more heads from me so I could pay at least break even on this dyno stuff. But guys, thanks for everything. You guys take care.